Hey, welcome to the Stinkin Truth Podcast. Mark Schlereth alongside my partner, Mike Evans. Me back in New York. Mike there in Colorado. Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I am doing awesome. And if I'm an LA Ram fan, I'm feeling good. It looks like cooler heads prevailed in LA. Matthew Stafford staying with the Rams.
Yeah, interestingly enough, why? Like, what was it all about? Because they gave Matthew Stafford permission to talk to other teams. The Giants legitimately had a contract of $100 million, $50 million a year contract on the table. And it looks like he's going back to Los Angeles for less than that, a little bit less than that, maybe $45 million a year. But like, why? Why did we have to go through this song and dance? Why were they willing to let Matthew Stafford go out there and see what the value was? Like, they didn't know what the value of Matthew Stafford was on the open market. I mean, luckily for the LA Rams, he didn't leave. Luckily, he wasn't so offended that he left. But I don't understand what the Rams' long-term play was here.
Do you have a theory?
No, not really.
No. Just maybe trying to find out what his value was out there, see if there was a deal that would blow them away.
Dude, you made a point a couple of podcasts ago. Tua has a $50 million contract. Dak Prescott has an over $50 million contract. Trevor Lawrence. I mean, you can go through the list. I have yet to mention a guy that's better than Matthew Stafford.
Right.
So, I mean, you knew what the value of the market was. I don't understand why the song and dance. I don't understand why, the flirtation, why letting him get out there.
I'm sorry, maybe not market value for quarterbacks, but maybe what his trade value was. Maybe they just kind of wanted to see if there was an offer out there that would blow them away. And when they maybe didn't get one, they said, okay.
Yeah. You know what? It's interesting. I don't know. I look at the Rams with Matthew Stafford and without Matthew Stafford. With Matthew Stafford, if you're just talking about the NFC in general, Mike, and you went, hey, what's the hierarchy of the NFC? You would definitely say Philly. You would probably go Detroit. Then somewhere at third or fourth would probably be LA, San Francisco,
Green Bay,
and Minnesota. But I would say Green Bay and Minnesota after the Rams and the 49ers. And I'm assuming health for the 49ers. Christian McCaffrey's back. I think Brock Purdy is the answer there. I think that they didn't covet Deebo Samuel like a lot of people thought they should covet Deebo Samuel. And I think, when you look at the open market in the fifth rounder was the price for Deebo Samuel, I think a lot of other people feel the same way about Deebo. So, I look at the Rams without Matthew Stafford. They're not in that top. They're behind Green Bay. They're behind Minnesota. They're behind San Francisco. I don't even know if they get into your top five.
Yeah, this one seems kind of curious to me, doesn't it? Because these are the Rams. This is a well-run, winning organization. And the combination of Les Snead and Sean McVay, they're top-notch. They're upper echelon. And yet, the way this whole thing has been handled seems just kind of weird, doesn't it?
It really does. And you think about last year, I mean, they had they had the possession of the ball. They were driving down. It was a 28-22 game. They had a chance to win against Philadelphia in the snow in Philly and host the NFC Championship game in Los Angeles. And had it not been for two long runs by Saquon Barkley, the very first run of the game was 60-yard touchdown. If it had not been, was that Washington? That was Washington. But he had two long runs against the Rams. Had it not been for those two, or if you even stop one of those runs, arguably you win that game. So it just is really weird. And listen, man, I understand a lot of people speculate that Kelly Stafford's a lot, to deal with, but she can't be that much.
No.
Hey, I will deal with Kelly Stafford. I'll deal with anybody. Hey, you may think she's a pain in your ass. What about Matthew Stafford? How big a pain is she in his ass? I just can't imagine why the flirtation or why the dalliance happened in the first place with the Rams. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But like you said, to open it up, thank goodness if you're a Rams fan, because this makes them a legitimate contender for the next 2 seasons.
So the Giants, they did show definite interest in Matthew Stafford. So now what direction do they turn in? I thought it was fascinating this week. The idea that Aaron Rodgers doesn't leave New York, that he just stays right there at MetLife and becomes a Giant.
Dude,
where do you put the possibility of that happening?
How desperate are the Giants? Like, this goes back to the Giants last year.
Yep.
You knew your quarterback couldn't play.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you lie to yourself? Like, I understand lying to other people, but lying to yourself, that's a bet. Like, it's probably something you shouldn't do, right? You got to be honest with yourself. So you knew he couldn't play. You knew he wasn't your long-term answer, and you bypassed the best quarterback draft that we have seen. Some people are saying since 1983. 6 guys going the first 12 picks, couple of guys, obviously Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. They talk about Caleb Williams being a generational talent. We have yet to see J.J. McCarthy. Penix actually played, toward the end of the season. I don't understand.
You did a Drake May game.
Yeah, I did a Drake May game. Drake May played actually pretty well this year. So I just don't understand where they're at. And now all of a sudden you're Aaron Rodgers and you find out that this pursuit of Matthew Stafford didn't work out. So now you're our guy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, now I'm your guy. Like Aaron Rodgers told me in a sit down one-on-one meeting, just Aaron and I sitting down together, hashing it out. And I asked him, what about next year? And he said to me, it would have to be a perfect situation. I came to the Jets because I love Hackett. I came to the Jets because I love Robert Saleh. I came to the Jets because I love Joe Douglas. None of those guys are there. Not one. So what's the perfect situation? Well, certainly it isn't going to the New York Giants and playing for Dable, who, let's face it, the Giants are somewhat of a disaster. They can't run the ball. They don't protect their quarterback. They don't come on now. Like that can't be like if what he said to me was true, it'd have to be the perfect situation. I can't imagine that being a perfect situation. I can't imagine the Raiders being a perfect situation. So based upon what Aaron Rodgers told me, the perfect situation right now doesn't exist. So I would say unless maybe Minnesota comes after him.
Yep.
But other than Minnesota, since the Rams now is locked up with Matthew Stafford, retirement seems to be the most likely avenue for Aaron Rodgers.
No, I don't see it. I don't see it. I don't think he wants to go out that way. I don't think he wants to go out these last 2 years. I don't think he wants the 2-year Jet experience to be people's final thoughts of him. I think he will find a situation and then spin it as to be a really good situation, even if it doesn't look like a perfect situation.
Okay, more like the likelihood. Let's say Minnesota decides, hey, man, we're going to re-sign Sam Darnold, even though we didn't tag him today, and it's franchise tag today. Today is the day, the deadline for your franchise tag. So let's say that the reports are that Minnesota's not tagging Sam Darnold, okay? Let's say that they decide to sign him to a long-term deal. It's a 4-year $140 million deal with however much guaranteed up front. And, they can get out after 2 years. So the one situation that would be, quote unquote, with Justin Jefferson, with Addison, with TJ Hawkinson, a good offensive line, pretty decent run game. Let's say that doesn't work out, right? They decide not to go in that direction, or it works out with Sam Darnold. So it doesn't work out for Aaron Rodgers. More likely that he spins the Raiders or the Giants, or more likely that he sits out and waits for somebody to potentially get injured.
Oh, okay. All right. That's a theory. That's another one. You just sit back and you just wait and see if, okay, but not officially announcing your retirement.
No, not officially announcing your retirement, but just not signing
right
with,
Okay. That's a possibility. I could see that. All right, you mentioned the Vikings. I wanted to bring that up because this is an interesting position they find themselves in, because with Sam Darnold, they were a legitimate NFC championship contender. They went 14-3.
Yeah.
If not for losing that final game against Detroit, they're 15-2, and the road to the Super Bowl goes through Minnesota. So with Sam Darnold, you have that kind of upside, that kind of ceiling. How do you spin it to a Viking fan if you don't bring back Sam Darnold and you say, all right, we're going to go back to our original plan. We drafted J.J. McCarthy. Now let's go develop J.J. McCarthy, because you know as well as I do, barring a Jaden Daniels type season, the Vikings go from being a legitimate NFC championship contender to being kind of an also-ran.
Yeah, everybody loves their own Dutch oven, right? They all love their own Dutch oven.
Why don't you explain that?
You fart under the covers. You got to give it a whiff to see what see what the flavor is, right? See what your fumes smell like.
Matt's over there shaking his head.
Yeah, but nobody likes it.
You've done it.
Yeah,
you've done it.
Yeah,
we all have.
But don't get caught up on your own fumes. It's like the Sam Darnold experiment worked. Okay, part of it is because you've got a really good roster. Part of it's because Sam Darnold actually went to San Francisco rehab for a year, really learned football, and came in and fit into that system. And it's the same system they run in San Francisco. It's all off the Shanahan tree. So don't all of a sudden think just because, hey, Kirk Cousins ran it, he's off the Shanahan tree. Oh, by the way, Shanahan drafted him, right? Don't just think because Kirk Cousins was successful and now you've got Sam Darnold being successful for a year, all of a sudden J.J. McCarthy, because of my exceptional coaching and my understanding of football, I don't really need good players. I can just win with anybody. I hope that Kevin O'Connell and the Minnesota Vikings don't think that. I hope that they understand the value of Sam Darnold. Remember, and this is how fickle football is. It's how fickle we are as not only sports fans, but organizations. Like the last two games of the season, the last game of the season against Detroit, and then the playoff game against the Rams, right? Where Sam Darnold didn't play very well. In week 16 or 17? They carried him on their shoulders in the locker room and sprayed champagne on him. Again, they hoisted him on their shoulders and sprayed him with champagne. Now all of a sudden he's got two bad games against playoff teams and he sucks. Forget that he threw it for 4,000 yards and forget that he had 35 touchdowns, right? He sucks because he lost to two playoff games. Be careful. Be careful what you do. Be careful playing with that fire, because I don't care how good the coach is. How good has Bill Belichick been without Tom Brady? I'll wait. Oh, he's not a 500 coach? Yeah, because your players matter. And Bill Belichick can tell you the same damn thing. If I don't have good players, I don't win many games.
You mentioned the franchise tag. T. Higgins got it for the second straight year. Now, listen, I'm not too sympathetic to the players. Sorry, but the franchise tag is something that the players agreed to. So you can't cry about the franchise tag. However, I know that the players agreed to using teams being able to use it 2 years in a row, but boy, that seems low rent, doesn't it? To use the franchise tag on a guy 2 years in a row so that he's basically good money, but in an injury in a sport where you can get hurt, he's playing year to year and missing out on that chance to get more long-term money. Is it considered around NFL circles that if you use a tag on a guy twice, that's a bad look?
Yeah, it's doing a guy dirty.
Yeah.
And, but again, you've got and I know Cincinnati fans are going to, they're going to tell me to get Joe on the program, whoever Joe is, and, get him on the program.
We got to get Joe on.
Joe really knows the Bengals. Yeah. Whoop-de-doo, Basil. So,
Joe.
they're going to be on ultimately all of us that are on television, anybody who's dealt with the Bengals over the years, there's a perception. And the reason that perceptions exist is because there's truth, right? A stereotype, whatever you want to call it, that the Bengals are cheap. They've got the 10th, I think the 10th most money, or in the top 10 of salary cap space. They know that, and they have said, hey, Jamar Chase, we're going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in football, right? So they've said that. Well, how hard is that to do, Mike? You know what the contract is, right? You know that the contract that sets the market at that position is the one that Justin Jefferson signed. Now you've got a new salary cap. It's gone up 8%. You take Justin Jefferson's contract, you tack on 8%, and you say, done deal. Why do we have to wait till June or July to get that done? If you know what that's going to be, right? And ultimately, they have Jamar Chase, they have Trey Hendrickson that they want to get signed, and now you've got T. Higgins. And T. Higgins is, a lot of people think he's a number one or potential number one, but he's a number two there. And I would tell you this, I think it would make more sense for the Cincinnati Bengals to trade T. Higgins and get value for T. Higgins and address the rest of their football team.
Yeah.
I had an argument on television today with my partner, Danny Parkins, and he says, well, hey, listen, man, this makes them, if they get T. Higgins signed and they get Jamar Chase signed, it makes them an elite level offense. They already are an elite level offense. And how'd they do? How many play? They've been elite level offense for the last 2 years. They've missed both playoffs.
Yep.
So they missed the year before too, right? Did they miss the year before, or did they make it the year before? Regardless, they missed this year's playoffs. So I don't care about being an elite level offense. I care about being an elite level football team. And one thing I've always known to be true, but it was proven this year by the Philadelphia Eagles. You build a team from the inside out, you got a chance to win every game. You got a chance to dominate physically. And, one of the cost-cutting moves they made, they let go of Alex Kappa, their starting guard, because of these issues that they're going to have signing guys. And my thought process would be, hey, man, you let go of Joe Mixon, your run game suffers. You let go of your offensive line. At some point, I would like to build the team from the inside out. And the theory, and it's one of your theories, and I adhere to your theory, is you've got an elite level quarterback. You've got a guy he is all balls. Yep. Joe Burrow came out and said, as long as I'm here, our window for a championship is open. You want to talk about ballsy, right? My window is open as long as I'm here. Elite level quarterback with an elite level number one. Guess what? You don't have to pay your number two elite level money. Your quarterback should create production out there, right? Your quarterback raises all boats. He's the high tide that raises all the boats. You don't have to spend all that money. You'd be better served moving on from T. Higgins, getting great value for him, and building your defense and building your offensive line. That's my opinion. That's how I think a championship caliber team is built. But if you just want a championship caliber offense, go for it. Sign more, wide receivers, and while you're at it, sign, a tight end and a joker and another, skilled running back, and meanwhile, watch your quarterback get scraped off the turf 24/7.
Since we last talked, Travis Kelce announced he's coming back. Does that surprise you? Is this the right move? Because we talked about, you went back and looked at the Super Bowl film, and it was not flattering.
No.
To Travis Kelce. Is he doing the right thing?
I think it's why he's coming back, Mike. I think it's hard to end on film that looks like that. And let's face it, man, he had over 90 catches this year. He was still incredibly productive, right? I think that Travis Kelce is still a big-time player in this league. Now, I think you would be better served as an organization sitting down with Travis Kelce and say, okay, here's the deal. We really want you, but we are going to manage you differently. You're not going to be our everyday starter. And I think 2 years ago, I don't know if they were I think they were number one, Mike, 2 years ago in number of times they lined up in 12 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends. I think they were 1. I think San Francisco was number 2 in 12 personnel. And so you could sit there and say, hey, man, you're still going to get 30 plays a game, 25 plays a game. But we think Noah Gray gives us a better chance to consistently run the football, especially on first down, in second down and 7+ situations where if you have a really good run game in those nickel situations with that tight end on the football field where he's not costing you, like that's a valuable weapon because why? In second down and 7+, everybody's playing you to throw the ball. So you get beneficial run looks in that down if you know how to run it. And because Travis Kelce isn't necessarily a trained killer in those situations, it makes it a little bit more difficult to be committed to doing that. Go look at Detroit in second down 7+. Look at their second down 7+ run game. Go look at San Francisco because oftentimes what they end up doing is getting themselves to third down and 2, and then the world's your oyster. Right. You can run anything at that point. So I think it would be beneficial for Travis. I think you have to sit down with him and say, hey, listen, man, this is how we envision this going. And this is going to be the best overall thing for you in the long run. And it's going to be the best opportunity for us to be back in that Super Bowl 60 next year. And then you present the outline, you present what you want to do. And I think at that point, Travis Kelce goes, yeah, I want to be a part of that. And you can manage him in practice because he's a guy that the Chiefs will tell you, man, the dude doesn't want to miss a practice rep. The dude just wants to, he does a really good job with all that stuff. But you have to sometimes manage the player as an organization. And I think that's what the Kansas City Chiefs need to do with Travis Kelce.
Interesting news from the NFL and their Hard Knocks franchise. So last year, we all remember famously the GM Hard Knocks with the Giants GM.
Yeah.
Joe Shane. And the whole Barkley thing and what an embarrassment it was. And not surprisingly, no NFL GM wants that smoke. So nobody signed up. Nobody put their hand up and said, we'll do the offseason GM Hard Knocks. So they're going to do it with Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
And follow him around at North Carolina and what he's doing with the Tar Heels. And apparently some NFL owners are unhappy that Belichick is getting this opportunity to showcase North Carolina after Belichick was basically, blackballed. Is that too strong of a word to use with this most recent NFL hiring cycle? So what do you think of the idea of Hard Knocks with Bill Belichick? You've seen Bill in a natural environment, not the Bill that we see for public consumption most of the time. You think this is a good idea? Will it work?
I think the Bill Belichick, when the cameras aren't rolling, is awesome.
Yeah.
I think the Bill Belichick, when the cameras are rolling, is snarky and
tough watch.
Yeah, it's not as entertaining. But it'll be amazing if he can just forget about the cameras going.
Yeah.
Because he's funny, he's snarky. I mean, he is a snarky, he got some snark to him, man. So I think that would be great. And then, I think, his girlfriend rushing the sorority and all that stuff is be fun too. So that'll be interesting,
Keggers.
Yeah. Let me hear, oh, your dad's here. No. Oh no, it's your grandpa? No, that's my yeah. I mean, no, that's my boyfriend.
Oh.
We're having a car wash. Shirtless. So I think it could be good. I mean, it's interesting. We were doing our radio show and Brandon Stokely, we do it with Brandon Stokely, 15-year receiver in the National Football League. Awesome guy. Was saying that, and I loved his idea. He said, you should force the bottom dwellers, the worst 2 or 3 teams in the league that get the first and second and third round, or the first draft pick number 1, 2, and 3, the worst teams in the league, they should be forced to do the Hard Knocks with their blundering around with their GMs going, who are you going to pick? I don't know. Who do you want to pick? this guy ran fast. Let's take him.
It's like soccer relegation.
Yeah.
You don't get relegated, but you have to go do hard knocks.
Right. You just getting hey, if it's not motivation enough that you guys suck, here's some more motivation. We're going to make fun of you while you suck because you're going to be on Hard Knocks.
Last one here for you, Stink. Coming out of the combine, Shedeur Sanders, lightning rod figure, right? Very polarizing figure. Apparently, a quarterback coach told Josina Anderson, who used to work with it at ESPN, she used to be here in Denver, that during the interview process with Shedeur, that he came across, quote, brash and arrogant. Would that be a red flag to you if you were a general manager or a head of personnel and you were interviewing a top quarterback prospect with the idea that this is the guy that you may draft to be the centerpiece of rebuilding your franchise? Would you be thrown off at all if he came across as brash and arrogant?
No. I mean, did he come across as stupid? If he came across, I said I would take, what was the guy's name? Deshaun Kaiser off my draft board because he said he had the body of Cam Newton and the brain of Tom Brady. That's stupid. I took him off my draft. I can't draft that
brash
guy.
or arrogant. That's just dumb.
That's just dumb.
Okay.
But, I go back to Joe Burrow, making fun of the media because his hands measured small. And when he said, hey, pray for my tiny little hands. I just hope I make, I don't brash and arrogant. Most quarterbacks I know have a certain amount of brash and arrogance to him. Baker Mayfield, was he brash and arrogant? Yeah. Has it, did it work out in Cleveland? No, but has it worked out in Tampa? Yeah. There's every guy is different. What I look at with Shedeur is he accurate? Is he on time with the football? Yes and yes are the answers to those two questions. And does he understand the game? And you talk to anybody that coaches him, they'll tell you, man, that dude has an upper echelon level of football intelligence that bodes well for any quarterback. So, okay, so he's arrogant. You ever sit across from Dan Marino? Ever talk to Dan? Was Peyton Manning arrogant when it came to his understanding of football and the football knowledge and the way he operated in practice and the way he,
So, well, then play devil's advocate here for me. Then in what ways then do you think, put your GM hat on here, in what ways would being brash and arrogant and that being a negative, how would that manifest itself? Okay, you draft this guy. You draft this guy to be your team's savior, and it turns out he's brash and arrogant. What are the pitfalls with that?
I think that guys who don't know how to prepare, who don't study, right? The guy, those guys, because those guys generally don't take responsibility for failure, right? It's not my fault. It's your fault. You haven't coached me well enough. You haven't done this, the Johnny Manziels of the world, right? So there's a difference. Again, I always say there's a true difference between confidence and arrogance. Confidence comes from a place of work. I've put in the work, man. I know I'm great. Arrogance usually comes from a place of fear. I haven't done the work. Yeah. So now I got to puff out my chest. So maybe it's brash and confident, not brash and arrogant. But the way he came off or the way it comes out of his mouth, you don't particularly like it. Well, it's not my job to make you like me. And oh, by the way, this is a time of the year where there are some of those teams that would like to throw out the misinformation campaigns in hopes that you slide to them so that they can take you.
Oof,
and
that's cold.
That stuff happens. Yeah. That stuff happens this time of year. So the draft evaluation, the draft process, still 50% of these guys that get drafted fail. The 50% of the guys in the first round fail anyhow. And what have I always told you? After the first 15 picks, there's no real difference between 15 to 32 and 32 through 64. It's just not there's not a whole lot that separates those guys, Mike. So brash and arrogant or brash and confident wouldn't bother me if the film lines up. Now, brash and arrogant or brash and confident, and you look at him on film and say, wow, he doesn't anticipate well. He just pulls the ball. He scrambles around. He just relies on athleticism. That would concern me a lot more than a guy being overly confident, right? And I go back to, remember, and I know he's young, so I know there's a learning curve here. And I don't know anything about Anthony Richardson as a guy. But I do know this. Scrambling around and making plays in college and having, a big-time arm and throw it 75 yards and all that garbage, that does not translate to success in the NFL. That dude, what did he complete? 45% of his passes this year?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, but it looked exciting. It looked exciting. I mean, I rest my case on that. Like, that's not good.
It's the draft season, right? It's the games are being played, the mind games, the manipulation, the sleight of hand, all this stuff.
Oh.
And it is, but you're right. That's cold, man. Like purposely going out and trying to tarnish a guy's reputation, smear his character, all because you like him and you want to draft him and you hope that he slides to you.
Yeah, sure.
These are the things you do to try to facilitate that. Man, that is cold. That is cold business right there.
It is. It's terrible. It's terrible, but it does happen. And just let me give you my friendly reminder. Now that we've wrapped up the combine season, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let me just go ahead and remind you what it all means. The fastest 40s ever recorded. Xavier Worthy last year. I think he was okay, season. Right? He was pretty good.
Good.
Before that, the fastest guy, John Ross.
Ooh.
Henry Ruggs.
Ooh.
Marquise Goodwin. Tyquan Thornton.
Oof.
J.J. Nelson. Jacoby Ford. Darius Hayward-Bay. Velus Jones Jr. So let that sink in when you get all Twitter-pated about guys running fast.
Yep.
I saw one, hey, the smallest guy in the draft only ran a 4.54 40. That doesn't bode well for him. I'd take him off my draft board. Can he get open? How quickly does he go from right to left, or how quickly does he run 10 yards in it? That's what I'm concerned about, not what his 40 time is. It's meaningless. And then here's your best bench pressers of all time at the NFL Combine. You ready?
Oh, this is Mark's favorite.
Tell me when you've heard this one.
Okay.
Justin Ernest, Stephen Paea, Mike Kudla, Leif Larson, Mitch Petrus, Broderick Bunkley, Jeff Owens, Dontari Poe, Moody. What was the guy's name? Natan Moody or whatever?
Yep. That's it.
Right. So let me just say this. If you run a really fast 40, you know what that makes you? Fast. If you can bench press 225 for a lot of reps, you know what that makes you? Good at benching. It does not translate to being a good football player. So before we get our panties in a wad over some clown's 40 time or some dude's bench press, just remember most of the guys who win the combine aren't good football players.
There you are, everybody. Mark Schlereth, NFL Combine fan number 1, right there.
Yes. Mostly because I wasn't invited. F you guys. For everybody that's a part of the Stinkin Truth podcast, I am Mark. He is Mike. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Make sure you download. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. We appreciate you guys. We'll be back with you later on in the week.